Coming up today on The Nice Guys on Business.
Integrity is one of the core elements of a beautiful business. So harmony, belonging, magnetism, and integrity, or integration, is what creates a beautiful business. And by a beautiful business, I essentially mean not the way the business looks, but how the business is experienced. And when we feel a sense of harmony or magnetism, we're drawn to these things that, just like we're drawn to beauty in the natural world, or beauty in the people that we know, or beauty in the experiences that we have, we can have an experience with an organization that is beautiful, that includes these elements of belonging, magnetism, harmony, and ultimately integrity.
The Nice Guys on Business podcast. They had me at hello. Go from where you are now to where you could be. Get expert tips to grow your business, to be more productive and more efficient, whether you're trying to build influence, grow your community, or make it rain. Best-selling author of Nice Guys Finish First, Doug Sandler, can lead the way. The Nice Guys on Business is produced by Turnkey Podcast Productions. Now, here's your host, Doug Sandler.
All right, Nice Guy community. Now, how many times have you heard that brand and culture building are important for your organization to not only just survive, but to thrive? Well, today we have Stephen Morris on the show. He's the self-proclaimed ever-curious life seeker, brand and culture building expert, I call him, and author of The Beautiful Business. He's got over 30 years of entrepreneurial experience, and he served as a trusted advisor in over 3,500 business leaders and involved more than 275 brands and cultures, including Google, Habitat for Humanity, Samsung, Disney, just to name a few of those small brands. I'm excited to chat with him. Stephen, welcome to the Nice Guys on Business podcast.
Doug, I'm thrilled to be here. Thank you so much. I always squirm when I hear my bio read back to me. and especially when you said self-proclaimed, this is just a list of accolades, but it is not the summation of my life.
No, I appreciate that. Sometimes when I get the ever-curious life seekers or thrill seekers or anything like that, I want to make sure that people don't realize that I'm putting those words into your agenda, that those are actually words that you and things that you actually live by. I mean, It's really, how fun is it to be able to be in a business? I know you run your own thing and you've been doing your own thing for decades and decades. Could you imagine going to work in some cases for some of those organizations that you work for and being kind of regimented by the rules, regulations, all the stuff that they have? And I don't want to throw you under the bus for any of the leaders that you work for, but could you go back into the regular world knowing what you know now?
Oh, Doug, I think I'm ruined as an employee. I haven't had, I say this to my friends and I'll say it here publicly, I haven't had a proper job since 1993, which essentially means I've been an entrepreneur since then, and any value that I've created in the world has been kind of self-directed, self-created. But to answer your question, there are some teams that I would love to work with, and there are a couple teams that I would spend a lot of time with that I feel like I've grown roots within those organizations. So they feel like, and I feel to them like, that I'm an extension to their team. So while I'm not officially an employee to them, there's a couple organizations that I have in mind that I've worked with for 7, 8, 9 years, but to be an employee, it means a variety of different things. And for me, I feed from the trough of a lot of different information, insights, and read a lot of books. And I'm in a postgraduate program for depth psychology. I'm in a training for somatic experiencing. So, this ever curious life seeker, it's just the way I am. It's the way I'm wired. And curiosity is one of those core things that I live by.
And we will dig into some of your content, of course, and make sure that our audience knows what you do and how you do it. But before we even get into that, though, talk to the person that's in my audience, man or woman, doesn't really matter, because I think what you do is so important as a leader, as someone that owns their own business and does it. How do you get to feel like you're a part of the team when you're an outside influence on the team that is being paid for by the team? And sometimes it's hard to insert yourself into the culture, especially when you deal with multiple clients at one time. You're not a one meeting and done meeting kind of guy. You have to stay in there oftentimes for entire projects or years. How do you manage that? And what advice do you give to those in our audience that are in the process of consulting or doing their own business thing?
Yeah, I think it all comes down to humanity. While the teams that I work with, I tend to get fairly deeply embedded into how I work with them and sort of what I do with them. I just love people. And for me to really serve people and help them wrestle and even make sense of some of the biggest challenges that they're facing with inside their organizations is both an honor and a privilege. And because I have this consultancy role, I bring objectivity into everything I'm doing. But if objectivity alone was the most important thing, or rather said differently, objectivity without a deep sense of humanity and really helping the teams and the leaders that I work with solve their most complex problems, I don't think I could do that without embedding deeply within their organization. You have to understand the problem in order to solve it. And in order to understand the problem, you have to go in deep and, see the world as they see the world, but keep your objectivity, which is what I'm doing as a consultant, that says, I'm going to pull from all these different experiences that I have to help them solve these complex problems. And ultimately, it's about simplification, helping them make sense of what these problems are, and so they can get their heads and their hearts around it to work through it as a team.
When you first engage with an organization that maybe you have never been into before, I would imagine that you would have to get all sorts of buy-in at all sorts of different levels. How important is it, especially in today's day and age where people are job hopping so easily because of technology? It's easier to do it now than ever. How is it that people know that they have a safe space to work within when sharing their opinions? And innovation is one of those things where if you don't have somebody that accepts innovation as an organization, as a leader, you're going to have no one feeling safe anytime they come up with an idea. Is that at all a part of what you bring to the table? Is this whole idea of, hey, we've got to learn. Innovation is so important. Technology is moving so fast. Talk to our audience about that for just a moment when you walk into an organization.
I think you're talking about two things. One thing is, and the question started off as, what kind of buy-in do you need? And so, that begins with what the invitation is from whomever the client is. Typically, I'm either referred into the organization or they've read a lot of what I've written, either my books or my, the blog that I write, or, like this, they hear me on a podcast kind of thing. So they understand sort of like what my unique mindset as a consultant is and how I bring that unique mindset into solving problems that are unique to their business. And in the second part, which I think is the most important part of your question, which is how do you create a container where people feel safe to not just innovate, but also be creative and curious and collaborative and work together as a team? And so we call that the container of psychological safety. So without safety, without this true sense of psychological safety, teams are not creative. Teams are not going to be curious about one another. Teams are not going to have really strong DEI programs. Teams are not going to be open to challenging them in new ways of thinking. And teams are not going to have that ability to even stretch the way they think about what they're thinking about, because all teams, especially in this day and age, are having to evolve. Because of the rapid changes that not just technology, but our society is kind of forcing them to. And even the market is shifting so quickly in some of these big organizations that they have to change internally first. And that's a mindset shift. And so only through the creation of this psychological safe container can you have a growth mindset that helps organizations and the individuals within those organizations go from where they are currently to what their envision what's next is.
What are some of the symptoms that an organization is challenged with or that's experiencing when they know, what, we really got to call Stephen on this one because we can't handle this one on our own? I'm curious what people are thinking within those organizations to know that they have a problem that needs solving.
Yeah, I tend to describe that in this particular metaphor. So, Doug, if you can imagine a house that's on a foundation with three doors that go into it. Door number one is what I call the brand door. The brand door really asks the question, for the organization. To what extent are we seen and understood by the public, and how do we express ourselves to the world? How do we position ourselves? What is our promise, and things like that? So that's door number one. And when organizations raise their hand and say, we've got a brand problem, typically we're addressing issues that have to do with that brand issue.
Right.
Door number two is what I call the culture door. And the culture door is typically a people problem. We all know what culture is. And that's typically an internal thing that either there's lack of engagement, or they have a high turnover, or their team is overly stressed out, things like that. And when I'm brought in to that, people raise their hand and say, hey, we've got a culture problem and we want you to come in and help fix it. And then door number three is what we call the strategy door. And the strategy of a business essentially says, we're here and we need to figure out where we're going to go and envision our what's next. And the invitation for me to come in is help them think through what that strategy is. Now, the reality is, which is why the metaphor works, is everyone ends up in the same room or in the same house, if you will, right?
Right.
And so whether I'm invited into the strategy door, the brand door, the culture door, all three of those things are inextricably connected together. Because when we say, okay, we come into the brand door, who's going to deliver on the brand promises? It's the culture. So the culture has to be included within the brand consideration. If they have a culture problem, then we think about, well, what is the brand doing to supplant and to create the core values and even the purpose within the organization that connects it with the culture? So it's an organization of integrity. And then, obviously the strategy question would be, well, who's going to deliver on the strategy, and how is the strategy ultimately delivered? The people of the organization are going to deliver on that strategy, and the brand is going to play a role in that, because the strategy typically has something to do with the products and or services that are told. So then I work with them to integrate all three of those things together, regardless typically of what the initial problem was.
I find that all three of them, like you said, they all lead, their doors, they lead into the organization itself. When people get started podcasting, I always share, you're either starting a podcast to build community, grow influence, or make money. I mean, one of those three things. Now, they're all byproducts of each other, but depending on what your perspective is, and I'm assuming you do this too, to a degree, you have to know where they're thinking that their problem is, so that you can at least start in the right spot, and you can always backdoor it to these other doors that are sitting there. So I love your trio approach to success with the organization.
Yeah, absolutely. And when I'm at my best, I'm invited to work on all three of those things. And when an organization then combines those three things together, we have then ultimately we can create an organization with what we call integrity. And integrity, you go back into my book, or maybe we enter into my book now. Integrity is one of the core elements of a beautiful business. So harmony, belonging, magnetism, and integrity, or integration, is what creates a beautiful business. And by a beautiful business, I essentially mean not the way the business looks, but how the business is experienced. And when we feel a sense of harmony or magnetism, we're drawn to these things, that just like we're drawn to beauty in the natural world, or beauty in the people that we know, or beauty in the experiences that we have, we can have an experience with an organization that is beautiful, that includes these elements of belonging, magnetism, harmony, and ultimately integrity.
I think about the corporate days of old when I think I started my own thing in around 1994, 95. I had a DJ business, and I said I want to do this full time. And the big thing in the corporate push that I just got out of, because I just could not stand the corporate environment, it was challenging for me to fit that into that box. Everybody was mission and vision focused. Are there new words that have replaced mission and vision, or do they're ideas that still come back to what's your mission and what's your vision to get there?
Yeah, I think so mission and purpose, depending on the organization, can be interchangeable. If you're a nonprofit, you have to have a mission because it's part of a board charter. And typically a nonprofit wouldn't have both a mission and a purpose. But yeah, the terms are luckily more or less the same. And the only third element or yeah, the third element that I would add into that is the core values. And
Exactly.
the core values of any organization is essentially how we agree to work together to serve both the mission and the vision. And just for identification purposes, so anyone out there who might be confused about those terms, the mission is, why are we doing what we're doing? Same thing for purpose. The vision is, where are we going as an organization, and what does success look like for both ourselves, our employees, and our customers? So, and that should be a clearly articulated vision or visualized vision, of course. And then the core values tell us, how are we going to do it? How are we going to work together to serve the people that we're going to serve the mission that we're looking to serve, and ultimately achieve the vision that we're aiming for? So those three are the perfect trifecta, and I hope those terminologies don't change.
Yeah,
So.
that's great. I just remember going way back, and I don't mean to get off topic here, but it's one of those interesting things where you went through your beautiful business, the things that make up a beautiful business. I just remember as an employee being queried, hey, what is our mission? What's our purpose? What are our values? Our core values. I'm like, I don't know any of them. Do people is one of the initiatives so that people walk away from the experience with you and understand where they fit into your beautiful business model?
Well, I think what in the work that I'm doing, if people are invited in, and if I'm invited in to do both brand culture and business strategy work, I'm helping them, the team, the individuals on the teams, live the core values. And so long as they live the core values, and the leaders understand what the purpose of the organization is, and then ultimately either what the vision or the strategic directives of the organization are, then the core values take care of itself within that process. Because then the leaders point the team members in the direction of the vision and aligned with the purpose, and then the team members just live up to the core values. So, and it's not even important to quote unquote remember what these words are, but more so it's like the thing I tend to think about and we measure within core values within organization is, are they observable behaviors within inside of organizations? And this could work, for a small team of, 6 people, or it could work for a team of, 600,000 people. So to what extent are we seeing the people live up to what we deem as the values within the organization? And can we identify that as observable, consistent observable behavior with those employees across the board? And then when they're off track, we do some conversations around adjustments and things of that nature.
Talk about the connection between understanding and having the right, I wrote down the 3: brand, culture, and strategy. How do those, might sound obvious to you, the answer. It's not as obvious to me, and maybe even somebody in my listening audience, but connect those to the bottom line. Because somebody might say, sure, well, yeah, but culture, I need my people to do what they're going to do. So I don't necessarily care how gentle or, or how iron fisted I am as it relates to getting the job done. I need to get the job done. I have shareholders that I need to, make sure I'm keeping happy, forgetting the fact that, look, if you don't have a happy team, it's going to be really hard to put that message with integrity out there to the world. So can you connect those brand, culture, strategy to the bottom line for us?
Totally. Yeah. Well, I'll do my best. I hope I can.
I'm sure you'll do fine.
So what is a brand? A brand ultimately is a promise that a organization delivers on to a potential customer. So when I say, I promise to deliver brand, culture, and business strategy to you, I better know how to do that, right? And so if I state that promise to the outside world, which is me, the brand, stating that promise to the outside world, then who's going to deliver on that? The people within the organization are going to deliver on that promise, right? So this is where the culture comes into play, where the culture upholds the promise that the organization's promising to whomever its customers are. Now, every organization needs customers. Every business, no business exists without customers, right? So the bottom line, or any financial income, comes from how happy are your customers based upon the promise that you delivered upon or haven't delivered upon. So if you state a promise that you can't deliver upon, and the culture is too stressed out, too overwhelmed, or not skilled enough to be able to deliver on that promise, then you're not going to make money. You're not going to get customers, and certainly not going to keep customers. So with the through line between bottom line and ultimately brand and culture and even business strategy is that if we want to make money, we need to attract X number of customers for X number of products and X number of sales over X period of time. In order to do that, we need to state a promise that our team can deliver upon and that is valuable to our customers out into the world. So, and if we can do that predictably, consistently, and across time, then we will keep having customers and ideally happy customers, not just come in the door, but stay in the door and refer us on to other ones. So when we have a happy customer, which means we've delivered on our promise because the culture is delivering on that promise, then ultimately we're going to make more money as an organization.
Right.
Now, the profit model is something very different in from organization to organization. So ideally, the leadership team has figured out where the profit actually is when we deliver on those promises and get happy customers and happy service. But the team members within the culture are only responsible for keeping those customers happy. Does that make sense?
How involved do you get in yes, it totally makes sense. I'm curious how involved that you get in the customer journey or in the customer experience.
Yeah.
Because while it's important to align culture with brand and making sure that the promises are being delivered by the organization, there's so many opportunities in that customer journey for there to be additional revenue opportunities for that company. Sometimes just understanding the customer journey is enough to see the gaps. So I don't know how involved that you get in that, but I'm curious just because I would think that would be an integral part of what somebody does that goes in and talks about brand, culture, and strategy.
Yeah. I've been involved and responsible for either shaping or reshaping hundreds of customer journeys. And customer journey is a great example of where culture meets brand, right? So, as we think about the customer journey, first touch with any organization or any company or any prospect that's out in the world, we go from a brand that we're unknown to known, and typically we're stating again. You'll hear me say this a lot. We go back into a stated promise, which is ultimately turns into an expectation, which ultimately turns into a reputation. So when we think about that through line between the brand to the final, we have a happy customer, and then we're going to keep them in the door. We're constantly looking at the customer journey from a perspective of how do we improve every touch point along the way, from first touch to the moment that these folks are no longer customers and they no longer either need our products or services. And I work in a lot of detail with these organizations to improve that customer journey. Sometimes it's the digital landscape, sometimes it's the retail landscape. Sometimes it really depends on who that customer is. And so I've got clients that are, in the university system. So big universities that I work with, and their customers are very different than, say, Google's customers, or Qualcomm's customers, or Disney's customers.
It's a really interesting process that you go through, because you almost have to be a chameleon. You have to understand a number of these environments, because you just mentioned, university environment is different than a retail product environment, which is different than in a digital environment. But one thing that can't be argued with, I don't think, is that technology has changed the entire landscape of all of this stuff. AI has come in and done and helped us. Sometimes people would say, "Hey, it's really a challenge because I have a product that I think AI could tailor a service that AI could take over." And I look at it and think, man, what a leg up AI is providing us in doing what we already do and helping us make it better. How has technology affected not how you do what you do, but the actual businesses that you're doing it within?
Oh, it's drastic. We could have a whole entire conversation around technology and especially AI. The interesting thing I find about AI is that most organizations are now beginning to get their head around what does AI mean to them internally. And how do we leverage AI, not just push against it, but how do we leverage AI as a productivity tool, but not a tool that is going to supplant the creative thinking and the innovative thinking that actual humans have to do.
Right.
But the beauty of AI is that it can take redundant tasks and make them much, much easier and much more efficient. What AI cannot do, at least that I've not yet seen it, is come up with new ideas or what we call true innovations, which are leaps of things that combine ideas together that we humans are uniquely skilled in imagining. So when we think about the vision of an organization, for instance, we can't ask AI, where do we see our company in 10 or 15 years from now? It's an unfair question to ask AI. And if we expect an answer from AI to point us in that direction, then we've given over our entire power for what's truly potent with the human imagination at hand here. So really, I see it as a marriage of utility, a marriage of productivity, but organizations have to continue to focus on what their own imaginative strengths are. And then it goes back into everything that we've just talked about in terms of, setting the conditions or creating the conditions for a team to thrive, which has everything to do with psychological safety.
Now, I know we just touched on the surface of all of the things that we could actually go down every rabbit hole that we just talked about, whether it's technology or culture or strategy or brand. Is there anything that we want to make sure that we are sharing with our community, with my community, that we're not sharing, so that they know a little bit more about what you do and how you do it? And I know, again, we're just scratched the surface of what you do.
Yeah. So we're recording this. I don't know when this podcast is going to come out, but we're recording this in early December of 2024. And it's the season where I'm doing a lot of year-end workshops, which are strategic planning workshops.
Right.
And really, a lot of organizations that I'm working with as I lead these workshops are asking the question of, where are we now? What is our big what's next? And how are we going to get there? So this is strategic planning. And so I do this with a number of organizations. And if I could distill the two core things that most organizations are grappling with, they're landing on what I would call priorities and attention. And even more so, I would call them radical prioritization and radical focus on our attention. The thing that we're dealing with now is all the white noise that's cooked up around media and our societal landscape, the complexities of the business world. I want to propose something deeper and something perhaps that can be more transformative to every organization and individual out into the world, which is pay attention to what you pay attention to. Pay attention to what you pay attention to. Attention is your life. Every time you give over to a scroll or to a social media feed or to a news headline, you're giving a slice of your life to somebody else. You get to choose where you put your attention.
Right.
So this is what I'm working with a lot of organizations right now, is how do we focus in on what's most important to us, and how do we radically prioritize and give our attention only to those things and not become distracted by all the other stuff that's out there.
That's pretty cool. And to actually have that fulfilled, it seems like that would be almost impossible. But at the same time, it would be so great if we could get everybody on the team to buy into that. How do you do that?
Accountability and love. So
those are two great things. Nice guy community. If we got nothing else out of this interview, and I know you did get lots of stuff from Stephen and probably more from Stephen than from me, but got a lot of stuff from Stephen about that accountability and love. Couldn't that just take us everywhere in every organization under the sun?
Yeah. How do we hold ourselves accountable? How do we hold each other accountable for the work that's at hand here? How do we love one another, love ourselves through the process? And those questions are what Rilke would call live with questions. They're not questions that the strategic mind alone can answer. We live ourselves into the answer to those questions.
I know, but what is so, and I know we're over time, and I just want to take 60 seconds more because it's so fascinating. How many people say, or how many leaders within organizations that you walk into, maybe their original knee-jerk response to accountability and love is, I don't care about the pain, just show me the baby. Is that realistic to say that?
I think some organizations definitely operate with that particular mindset. I think, for the most part, the people that come to me have a much more realistic perspective on the human condition.
I love it.
If they want to have a productive team and great products or services that they provide, they know they need happy people, and people need to be cared for. So the I don't care how much pain they go through is just doesn't fly in this day and age.
I love it.
You're going to have huge turnover on your team.
Well, I love that you say that. I'm just coming off of watching, I think, 4 seasons of Succession. So for me, for me, I'm just like, I look at the organization that they ran. I don't know if you were a fan of the show at all, but I watch it. I'm like, how did the company even exist? We don't even know what the team did. We only know what leadership did. And I'm like, with leadership like that, there is definitely some level of transparency there that will trickle down to your entire team. But you're right. Accountability and love will get you very far. We try that with Turnkey every day. Accountability and love. Let me love up on you. Let me show you the way, not just tell you what to do, and not yell at you when there's a mistake that's made. We want to make sure that you know that you're empowered to make decisions as a team member. We know that you're going to make mistakes, and it's okay as long as you own up to the mistake and you know that we are going to fix it together as a team. I just think that that's the way to run an organization if you want happy people and a team that you can walk away from and you know that they have your best interest at heart. They don't want to stab you in the back.
Absolutely. Yeah. Yeah. The instead of stabbing you in the back, it's got to be, I've got your back.
I've got your
because
back. Right.
The I've got your back is both accountability and love. It's like, I've asked you to do something as let's say I'm a leader of the organization. I've asked you to do something. I've asked you, to your point, make decisions on behalf of the organization. And I've got your back for whatever those decisions are. Hopefully you're well trained. Hopefully you've got the company's best interest and the customer's best interest at heart. And I trust you to go out and do that work. And I'm going to love you through it. So I've got your back.
You were true to form. You did not disappoint. You were a wonderful guest, as always. You've been a wonderful client for years. We so appreciate you. Stephen, how can those in our audience get hold of you if they want more information about what you do, how you do it?
Well, first, thank you, Doug. Always a pleasure to spend time with you. You guys do great work at Turnkey, and I appreciate everything you've done. And I certainly appreciate this conversation. It's coming at a very poignant time in this world, this crazy world that we're living in right now. So how people can get up with me, pretty much everything related to Matter Consulting and Stephen Morris can be found at matterco.co. It's matterco.co. And you can find everything about my beautiful business book, which is a bestseller. You can find it there too. And I have a blog of about 38,000 people that business leaders from around the world read, and you can get that for free.
Well, congratulations on all your successes. For those in our community, we'll make sure we put a link in the show notes for everything that Stephen had just shared. You don't worry about remembering any of those links. They're right in the show notes. You know how to get there. Just click right behind. You know how to get there. Stephen, thanks for being on the show. I appreciate your message.
Doug, thank you. I appreciate you.
Nice Guy community, never underestimate the value of nice. Again, special thanks to Stephen Morris. All of his information, including access to his book, his blog, his website, all of that right there in the show notes. Click on those. Steve O'Brien, go ahead and take us out of here.
Friday advice and Tuesday interviews with people far more interesting than they are. Fill up your week with the nice guys. Have fun storming the castle.